Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today, as usual, we are joined by my friend and co-host, Kilian. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. Glad to be back. Really excited. Kody, you were in a different spot here. Where are you at right now?
I'm currently, I'm currently in Los Angeles. I was going to be attending the Hackaday SuperCon today. I still am, but I realized it is loud and a little small in that building. And there's like 500 hackers there right now, all running around the place, excited. So I figured if we're covering the news today, I should probably go somewhere a little bit quieter. That's
Sure.
relative. You can expect to hear the sounds of the corn man honking a clown horn, ice cream trucks, people shouting, car alarms, and sometimes gunshots because the rent over here is a little low. So yeah. But yeah, it's good to be back in Los Angeles. I've been working on a lot of cool projects here, and I also got to volunteer to help out at the Hackaday SuperCon. So if you're in LA or Pasadena, as it were, then hopefully you'll be able to hang out. I'm going to be at SuperCon, hopefully recording some content, maybe doing a live stream there with some of the guests. And also, I'm gonna show this off. If you are around, I have very foolishly decided to try to pull off an event on the like basically the next day is when we settled on this. So the Meow Mixer is going to be at Null Space Labs. I figure there's all these people who have come from out of town. Does it get bigger? Yes. There's all these people who have come from out of town that like want to hang out, meet other people, maybe like make some friends. And I wanted to make a little mixer or like something. Actually, sorry, chat, I'm moving you over so this is legible. So I wanted to host something that would allow people from out of town to check out LA's own hackerspace, get to know the spot a little bit, and maybe solder some stuff. So we decided to make this so that any donation to Null Space Labs will get you entry. We're going to do 9:30 to 11 p.m. tonight. And if everything comes in from Amazon, we'll have soldering kits for $40 if you want. If not, you can hang out and just meet some cool hackers. By the way, I made this with AI. It took me an hour and a half. So if you don't like this poster, it's got the SuperCon colors of like black, yellow, and white. It's like I worked really hard on this. So I hope you guys appreciate it. And yeah, this one cat doesn't have a reflection in its eye. Okay, that's fine. There's actually, the more you look at this, the more like strangeness and weird AI stuff is going on. But out of like 50 different attempts, this is my favorite one. And I'm not very good at graphic design, so I was like pretty pleased with how this came out. So yeah, if you're in LA or Pasadena and you are visiting for the Hackaday SuperCon, please come by and check out Null Space Lab tonight. We'll be hanging out there and happy to introduce everyone to the local flavor, as it were, of hacker spaces. All right. Also, hello everyone. I'll bring the chat back now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hide you, but it's good to see you, James. It's good to see BNK28 and everyone else in the chat. So yeah, good to see you all. So we've got a lot of stuff to go over. I kind of want to talk about, I like to talk about some research that I get to do and shout some things out. So first, I just want to give a shout out to my good friend Nick, who is the #2 most viewed video of all time on the Hack 5 channel. Almost 1 million views. I think it's going to hit 1 million views in the next like couple months. So I love to shout out fellow content creators that are doing great. Nick doesn't even do content creation anymore. He jumped in with me on Nullbyte and was doing some of those videos and made a couple videos on Hack 5. So it's just really cool because he's off to another job now doing cool stuff, and seeing him get his start at Nullbyte, go through Hack 5 and still have the #2 most popular video of all time. I'm just impressed because Hack 5 is a big channel. So shout out to Nick for that. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And then I also want to show off the SuperCon badge. So this is a vector scope. Kilian, do you know what a vector scope is?
I know what an oscilloscope is. How is it related to that?
I believe it shows the information of an oscilloscope, but in a vector. So it like displays like vectors on the screen.
Got it. Okay.
Of course, this is like a TFT display. So it's actually like a thin film transistor array underneath that's like driving like a very pretty like pixel display. But I made like 60, 70 plus of these suckers out of the 500 that they manufactured. And by they, I mean we, because there were a lot of community members who came in. Angelina, who's a guest on the show, very often came in and was soldering. David, the person who helped me create Nullbyte, came in and was soldering. So a lot of people on the team were hanging out and making these things. So yeah, if you get a chance to go, these badges are so cool this year. I really enjoyed making them, and frankly, they just look awesome. So I'm excited to see what people do with them, because the whole point is hacking them and getting them to do interesting stuff. And there's a lot of contests around plugging these into things, making add-ons, and like that all goes down to rapid prototyping. Like people that learn how to make electronics often love the challenge of creating a prototype in a limited amount of time, and often they are ugly as hell. Like they wires everywhere and like solder globs and whatever, and that's fine. Like it's about creating something that fulfills a specific task in as short a time as possible with as much creativity as possible. And that's why I love, makers and the kind of like hardware hacker side of the hacker spectrum. I find these people to be just magical and delightful when it comes to what they can do. So I wanted to show off my maker creds. I'm going into the lion's den of all these people who are so good at like hacking and creating stuff. So I was like, all right, I want to bring something. So I have been working on the Tunnel Screamer. So this is I think Kilian and I really like street art. It's one of my favorite things. And in particular, there's a bunch of storm drain tunnels in LA that have amazing street art, right? Mm-hmm. Have I mentioned that?
Yes, I know that's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so like this is like something that I'm really into. And of course, like I love communicating with people. I love like the whole interaction. So like I wanted to create a piece of technology from scratch, basically from e-waste, that would be able to react to people or provide some sort of experience. And since it was Halloween, I decided to make a tunnel screamer, where when you're walking down the storm drain tunnel with a flashlight, and you hit this light sensor, it will start screaming, which reverberates through the tunnel and is like very, very scary. So I picked this. If you've ever heard like the sound of like a big like deer calling or like an elk calling, I found this sound on YouTube that was like scary, like scary sounds, whatever. Like I found something that's like clearly, to me, I know what an elk call sounds like, but it's all distorted and warbling. It sounds really scary, and most people in Southern California have not heard this noise. So this is the idea. I'm going to let this play. I don't think we'll be able to hear the sound, but when we shine a phone flashlight, this green light turns on, and it's screaming in my ear right now. It sounds truly horrifying. But this little speaker was from like a bird scooter or something, and like I put it all together and wired it up to a battery, and it worked. I actually placed it, and this is what happens when you're walking along. I have to turn the volume down for myself a little bit. There it is. So you can see the red light right there, which I actually need to hike a mile back down and fix this now. But it starts screaming in the darkness the instant that the light touches it. And it really sets off quite a racket. So I prototyped this, again, mostly out of like e-waste and stuff I salvaged in about 24 hours. And then I went on to take it to the next level and make a solar powered version that has wires that run up and out of the tunnel and allow it to operate for a while. And I made one key change to this entire system. I made it so that after it detects that light, it actually waits between 20 and 30 seconds before it starts screaming. So after the person has already walked past it, the screaming comes from behind them.
Oh,
there you go. So just being able to put together a little thing that like senses light, plays something like a sound on a speaker, and is able to last for a long time, like doing a little bit of like battery management was really fun. I got to kind of like buff my credentials for going into this like maker conference and talking about the kinds of things I've made recently to something that was basically made out of trash, but still very funny. So if you're interested in the Tunnel Screamer project, I have made like a third version now that's even more simple and more low cost. So the first one I put out there cost about $50. This one costs about $10. So if you're interested in making some fun prototypes, yeah, this was originally actually the Terminator skull project that I did for Halloween, where when you touched the candy bowl, it would start yelling at you. I basically took the same code, modified it a little bit, and was able to adapt it to this new purpose. So been doing a lot of rapid prototyping lately. I find it really fun, and that's why I'm so excited to go into this hardware hacking conference and see what other people are up to. So if you haven't seen it, hold on a sec. Hackaday SuperCon. Yeah, check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, and guess what? Our guest Aria, who's been on the show multiple times, wrote this article. So a lot of people that we know are actually involved in Hackaday SuperCon. It's super fun, and yeah, highly recommended for people that like to see things get created. All right, so we've got a lot of breaches and news and other things, so we should probably get to that. Some of it good news, some of it bad news, but I guess we'll probably start out with the bad news, if not the exciting news. Did you hear about this American Airlines pilot union breach?
I did, yeah. They've been in. I mean, the pilots unions have been in the news just a lot lately. With I think a couple of them are doing some negotiations or renegotiations of contracts. I believe, and yeah, following on the heels of that, this is not great.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, typically what we see here is like when this happens, there's the ransomware part of the operation, and then there is the exploitation part of the operation, where we have an initial like IT outage, and then later we find out what data the threat actors had access to and what they might have exfiltrated as an additional part of this whole like exploitation scheme. So pretty unfortunate. It appears that 5,745 pilots and pilot applicants were affected by this. And a lot of like airlines and pilots have been targeted in these sorts of data breaches recently.
Right.
It seems like this is not the first one we've seen, even the last couple months, that have targeted pilots and pilot applicants.
I mean, it's especially scary considering the amount of like access that they have. I mean, I'd be worried that this could be a precursor to some type of like identity impersonation or something like that. If not a physical, impersonation, but just to disrupt something, to pretend to be a pilot, and not have flights take off and cause all sorts of havoc in that way.
Yeah, what our friend Angelina has taught me is that a lot of aviation relies on trust.
Right.
And that's it. Like, and that's both its greatest strength and its greatest vulnerability. So pilots being targeted like this are definitely something to be a little concerned about, maybe just because of how much trust runs that whole system. Oh, and James also comments, is Arya the one with the mad electronic skills? Yes, absolutely. Arya is crazy for electronics. So she's also a writer at Hackaday. So if you want to see some really great posts that she's done, she is my absolute favorite go-to like expert for hardware hacking. She is really, really deep in it when it comes to how things work and explaining all the intricacies of hardware. So yeah, one of my favorite people, Arya. All right, next up, we have, I would consider this to be a plus. This is Google Play adding a kind of like third-party verified badge to VPNs, meaning that it's actually been audited. And somebody has taken a look at this and made sure that it is compliant in a couple of key metrics. So data storage and privacy, that means like, is it storing logs? Cryptography, does it have any backdoors or weaknesses? Authentication and session management. Are there any vulnerabilities that can allow for impersonation or man-in-the-middle attacks? Network communication requirements. So, what is it? How is it exchanging data? Platform interaction requirements. Does not export sensitive functionality via custom URL schemes. Good, yeah, that's what you want. Code quality and build setting requirements. So, like, is the code riddled with vulnerabilities used as a backdoor?
Right.
Kind of funny because this is like a cheat sheet, sneaky things VPNs can do to actually act as a way to either infect your device or see more information than they should. Like, are they keeping logs? Do they deliberately have like bad code quality that might allow somebody to backdoor this device, or are they just explicitly allowing for that in the way that they've set up the VPN? These are all questions that a lot of people have, and most people don't have the time to like verify massa compliance like for themselves. So this is something where if you're looking to download a VPN on the Google Play Store, you can now expect some additional guidance on whether or not this has been verified by a third party. So you don't have to just look up, old nullbyte videos or, reviews by people that are, supposedly trusted. It really like the VPN market space has been the Wild West for a while.
Yeah.
And people will say anything. You have YouTube influencers, getting paid to do endorsements. You have like such a complicated narrative around this. It's nice to see some transparency when it comes to which ones have been independently audited and can be distinguished from like up and coming, like apps that may have no verification whatsoever and have some serious problems in like one of these categories.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like we've talked about this many, many times in the past. A lot of times you think people are going after VPNs or using VPNs because they want to like watch Netflix in a different country and access their library, and they don't care about security. But that's not really what us security people care about.
Yeah. I'm generally pretty hopeful that more people are going to like realize that VPNs are super useful, and that they allow you to be more protected on like local networks and like just protect your privacy like from certain parties. But the complication here is that they're not perfect, and they can also be difficult to use. For example, a company that I worked for doesn't allow me to use a VPN for anything. So if I touch anything, I get logged out of my account and I get to talk to a bunch of security people. And that's just the fact of using a VPN can be seen as suspicious in some security contexts. So having like a random connection come in, or like having an employee logging in from a completely different IP address, like literally every single time, like that creates a headache for the SOC team that they might not want to deal with. So I've just kind of noticed, like, as VPNs become more popular, they can get you in trouble, or not so much get you in trouble as like not be usable in certain instances. So something to think about. All right, so Microsoft Exchange has 2 zero-day vulnerabilities that allow remote command injection and data theft attacks. So there's 3 of these guys, and this one seems to be the most severe, if I remember correctly. These vulnerabilities do require authentication, which has reduced the CVSS to between 7.1 and 7.5. So that just also another story later on, they've completely overhauled these CVSS scores. So that's great. It's probably going to provide some more clarity into like what exactly that means. But now it's still a little just like, how hard is this really? And like somebody needs to just like pick a number. But yeah, overall, that's still a pretty high severity. And some of the suggestions here for mitigation were things like make sure you have 2-factor enabled. So, I mean, obviously you would need to like either steal a session or man in the middle or something in order to pull this off. You need like credentials, or you need to be logged in order to do this. So yes, there is at least a little bit of a barrier here, but successful phishing attacks could very easily exploit this. And that's why 2-factor is going to be really important to mitigate against this particular vulnerability.
Oh, there it is. I was going to say, I was pretty sure this is the one that Microsoft was like, it's fine, we'll fix it later. Like, I don't really love that answer, but
Microsoft is like not committed to treating this one as super serious yet. Let's see. Let's check back next week and see if it's being reported as actively exploited. Byone mentions, I mostly use a VPN to access my own self-hosted server. Being able to like VPN back into your own network, like that actually might be the least suspicious way to use a VPN. Because if you're doing that, then like, you have the ability to come into the same login via the same IP address every time. That could be enough to not get you in trouble. And that is a really good use of a VPN. Like it's very useful to do that. Just be careful, because VPN like entry points are like often targeted. So you got to be really careful about making sure to not expose yourself to the internet. All right, more fallout from the Okta breach. 134 customers had their information accessed from their support system, Okta's support system. And from that, it appears that the attackers pivoted into several accounts. Some of those accounts were 1Password, BeyondTrust, and Cloudflare. All of them notified Okta of the suspicious activity. And I think somewhere in here is buried the number of users that were actually 5 customers. So those 5 customers were obviously giant companies like 1Password, BeyondTrust, and Cloudflare. So that's a pretty big deal. But this sort of supply chain attack where you go after someone who provides a critical service for one of these other like tougher nuts to crack, authentication services are getting targeted more and more. We saw how 1Password had that breach that just kind of like kept on going. This is something where authentication providers like Okta, for example, are juicy targets because of the people they work with and the types of security that they provide. So I often find that customer support systems are secondary when it comes to the kinds of things that people really spend a lot of like cybersecurity budget on or attention to. But we like Varonis security researchers were finding vulnerabilities in like Salesforce, like support communities, like earlier this year, that were just showing that these are viable targets. Not only do they have a lot of interesting information here, people like, what's going to be in the customer support, whatever, like they're going to be talking about their broken drills or whatever. Because at the time, we were seeing it in places for like DeWalt and stuff like that. But like, okay, what if it's Okta, and they're having
Mhm.
people like send sensitive information directly to them that could be used to log in as the user? Like, is that a target? And it turns out absolutely that was a target.
Yeah, the more interesting thing is looking at this like from a broader standpoint, especially in kind of traditional security. Active Directory was always sort of the keys to the kingdom there. I mean, every attack when they land on the self-hosted side of the house, they're going after Active Directory to maintain that persistence, to potentially elevate permissions. And in the cloud world, your single sign-on solution is kind of serving that exact same purpose. It's such a massive target. If you can get in, that allows you to pivot to all of those other potentially different cloud apps. Um, and it depends on what level of rights you get into the environment at that point. But it really is the keys to the kingdom, and I'm not single out Okta here. It's any of the single sign-on solutions. Um, they're so critical, and I think we don't really think of it because it's not like a data store in and of itself, but it links to all of the things that are what the attackers want.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the fact that out of all these companies that had their information access, 134, only 5 were actually exploited. Like, it only takes those 5 if they are very large companies that have like a big impact, or
Mhm.
they provide services for people even further downstream, like
Right.
1Password. That's the kind of stuff that really can become a larger issue fast as the damage continues to go like downstream, basically to customers who like use the service or that were impacted in the breach of the breach, as it were, at
Right.
this point. All right, so next up we have Atlassian warning about a Confluence data wiping bug. This is something that fortunately doesn't allow attackers to perform like a ransomware attack in terms of like double exploitation, like stealing stuff.
Right.
It's only data destruction. So when we talk about the ability to execute a wiper, this is not ransomware. This just destroys the data. There's no
Right.
recovering from it. And it just seems like there is a way to do this that is extremely severe. So it's got a 9.1 out of 10. That's serious.
Yeah.
And it affects all versions of Confluence Data Center and Confluence server software. So that's going to be something that you definitely want to get on patching, as it is limited in its usefulness. So you
Mhm.
can expect somebody to just kick off like a full scale attack because it
Mhm.
is both possible and easy. It doesn't get anybody any money, as
Sure.
far as I can see, but it does allow for a maximum amount of chaos, which means you know it would be a good time to get on these data mitigation
Yeah.
steps. All right. Next up, speaking of hardware companies, Ace Hardware said that 1,200 devices were hit during a cyber attack. This is preventing local stores from processing orders and customers from placing orders online.
Mhm.
And they're trying to get 196 servers back up and running. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously these sorts of attacks imply ransomware. When you have like a service going down hard,
Mhm.
it doesn't tend to be like a data breach. It tends to be either double exploitation or just straight up ransomware. So we'll see what happens here, but it seems like this is an attack in progress.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing anybody taking credit for this yet. And I don't know if they updated the article with that information, if it says.
Let's see.
I don't recall. I don't remember seeing it because I know we're seeing Black Cat again this week. We're seeing Lockbit again this week, but I don't remember if we talked about who was behind this one.
Wow. I'm sorry. I didn't see the statement by the CEO when I originally read this article. I'd like to end by reminding you that of all this frustration and all this effort is a direct result of malicious cyber attack on Ace. This was perpetuated by criminals. Though they are hiding in the shadows, they are no different than thugs who break into your store attempting to steal your stuff. It's a battle of good versus evil. The processes to recover are complex. The principles of this battle are not. Good will ultimately triumph. That is a very strong statement.
Yeah.
Most businesses are like, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there was an unexpected encryption event. We will get back to you. But this guy's just like, we are literally fighting evil.
Right.
That's cool.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the there's pageantry to it, but I appreciate like the forthright kind of approach that they're taking. Like, you know,
Transparency
yeah.
is not in short supply at Ace Hardware, it seems. So yeah, some strong statements. But I mean, I have to say, compared to the kind of like nitpicky, like low information, like we don't know what's happening, we'll get back to you. Like this is like they're like we're fighting evil right now. Our Navy SEAL IT technicians are going loud, like just strap in. I was like, okay, things are tense at Ace Hardware at the moment,
Sure.
but it seems like at least 5% they were saying of their servers are back up and certified by their IT department.
I mean,
51%.
yeah,
Sorry,
they're doing all right.
I was off by like a good amount. Yeah, 51% of the servers were started being certified. So
I
it
mean,
seems like they're well on their way to recovery at this point.
right. I mean, but here's the thing: like the folks down on the front lines, in the trenches, the security people, the IT people. I mean, it is a battle. I mean, they're out there fighting this, bringing the services back, validating it. You know, I've know plenty of people of my security career over the years who have had to face these type of challenges, and like it it is stressful, you know. So it's nice to see like the CEO kind of calling it out and giving them a lot of props that they're, you know, they're fighting the good fight.
So another thing that I think is interesting about the situation is it's a complicated attack. So obviously there was the primary attack that's impacting services, but then other criminals are trying to take advantage of this by contacting retailers and trying to get them to use an alternative payment method while the disruption is occurring. So they're trying to fill the void of communication. They've like taken down some of the ACES team's ability to communicate with their own suppliers, and then these criminals are sweeping in and attempting to contact those suppliers and get like payments and other things wired to different accounts. So really is a complicated attack. And I agree with the ACE CEO that there's a lot of malice here when it
Yeah.
comes to the way that attackers are piling on to make this a very complicated and frustrating situation for them. So yeah, one of our viewers says ACE's CEO thinks he's Batman. Yes, this guy is fighting an active criminal attack that appears to be like expanded onto multiple fronts with like phishing attacks and also potentially ransomware employed to bring down some of these services. So a lot of drama going on at Ace Hardware, but again, transparency not in short supply.
Yeah.
All right, so Black Cat ransomware is claiming the healthcare giant Henry Schein. Am I pronouncing that right? I believe so. Yeah. If I'm not, let me know. But the long and short of this is a lot of data. I think it was like 30 something terabytes of data was said to have 35 terabytes of sensitive files were said to have been exfiltrated. And the back and forth with ransomware gang here, Black Cat, has been a little confusing. So they recently actually removed Henry Schein's entry on their data leak site, which kind of implies that maybe the company had either restarted negotiations or had paid the ransom. So we're not really sure exactly what the status of this is right now, only that both parties have kind of admitted at this point that there's something going on, with Black Hat being far more specific and saying that they had a substantial amount of sensitive healthcare information that they were ready to leak.
Yeah, I mean, I think every week almost we see 2 or 3 folks who Black Hat's targeted. I don't know if they're the biggest or most prolific, but we certainly hear about them quite a bit.
I feel like a lot of the time the reason why these gangs are in the news is because they just like hit a lick with some, you know, random vulnerability that gets them access to tons and tons of stuff. Like how long were we talking about Clop and the Move It data breach? Those people just clocked in and just went to work on that vulnerability, and they made it like their vulnerability, where anytime you heard about like a Move It, whatever, they were just really, really fast at getting in on that critical vulnerability and getting a massive portfolio. I think some of it has to do with the number of like affiliates or people like working with them. But yeah, like as these ransomware gangs grow, if they're able to get more affiliates working with them, they can just like fill the bucket with all these victims to go after. And if they have people to assign to like run through the process, like you tend to see these really big campaigns like this.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, you know, we always have to be vigilant about it. They're always out there.
All right, so we also have mortgage giant Mr. Cooper hit with the cyber attack impacting IT systems. This has left people unable to pay their mortgages, which obviously is kind of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so fortunately, nobody's going to get penalized for this, but it is currently
Mhm.
impossible for people who have a mortgage with Mr. Cooper
Mhm.
to make those payments. So it's unknown how long the outage is going to take, but it is confirmed to be a cyber attack. So I don't believe that anybody has claimed like a ransom or anything,
I
but
don't think so. Not that I saw. Yeah.
yeah, and it says if it turns out this was a ransomware attack, so that implies that nobody has claimed responsibility. But
Mhm.
yeah, anytime somebody mentions a cyber attack, nobody works for free, so these tend to be financially motivated. And if your
Sure.
systems are going down, that implies ransomware. So
I
in
do
this case,
appreciate that they are like, looking out for the customers and you know, I can appreciate like and I say that, and I know you laugh, but like it's all too easy to forget like the real human impact of this is like, hey, like if you can't pay your mortgage, you're afraid,
yeah,
something bad could happen, right? You could lose your house. And probably not instantly, you know what I mean? But like it doesn't give you a good feeling. So I appreciate that they're again being forthright with this and like, hey, while we're getting this back, like don't worry, we're not gonna, penalize you, which I appreciate.
yeah, yeah. Because if there was an impossible situation here for
Right.
people like needing to make payments but not being able to make payments, that would be where the pain really comes from.
Definitely.
All right, so Boeing is confirming an attack
Hmm.
amid Lockbit ransomware, listing them as one of their victims. We see that Boeing services websites were down. The ransomware gang said that they had breached Boeing's network and stole a significant amount of sensitive information and would leak it online 5 days later if the airplane manufacturer didn't reach out to begin ransomware negotiations. So presumably they have something juicy enough that they want to show Boeing, and they're insisting that they need to reach out and begin some sort of negotiation within a set amount of time, 5 days, as it were, before they drop the files. So I don't know if a specific amount of let's see. I don't know if a specific amount of information was suggested. It looks like not, but the deadline was yesterday. So um, I don't see any updates on this,
Yeah.
and I am not going to go to their
Oh,
I'm not
right.
going to
Yeah.
their Tor site on the show. So yeah, I guess we'll find out later. But obviously, we don't need to tell you who Boeing is. They're like
Right.
absolutely gigantic. And I'm not sure based on the initial reports exactly like what the scope of this is.
Yeah.
So like exactly like which systems are affected. So still a lot of information to come out here, but a very public demand for the beginning of ransomware negotiations here from Lockbit.
The at least the positive takeaway, not that there's a like a positive to this, but it said that security operations it was not compromised. So like flight security, for example, um, I believe the issue does not affect flight safety, which is obviously paramount dealing with human lives.
Yeah, and based on the vagueness that the ransomware gang here
Right.
is resorting to in their communications, like typically if they've got something really juicy, they're specific about it or they'll release some samples. So
Hmm.
it's unknown exactly what it is because if it's like I don't want to say just like employee, information, that's pretty typical for these sorts of attacks. Is
Hmm.
information about employees is released or like other information that the business has related to that. If it was like some confidential stuff, like the government contract, like secret stuff, then like
Hmm.
I guess we'll see. Maybe they
Right.
wouldn't mention that either. But yeah, it really is a big question about what exactly they were able to exfiltrate, and whether or not it's worth it to going to start negotiations. All right, so Meta is facing a ban in the EU, and this is based on location and behavior-based advertising. So the European Data Protection Board is extending the temporary ban to basically say you need to disable this sort of advertising and tracking.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're not going to be allowed to operate within the European Union. They also say that Meta's GDPR compliance is non-compliant. Uh, and I believe they were fined like 300 million euros. Yeah, 390 million euros for illegal behavioral advertising.
Hmm.
And they don't accept it. So they're appealing it. They're blaming the decision on a lack of regulatory clarity. So I don't need to like remind everyone that like Meta is Facebook, who is maybe a little notorious for having these sorts of like
Yeah.
data scandals in the past. their kind of whole purpose is like learning as much about people as possible to be able to deliver them advertising in ways that are difficult for other platforms to do. So like hindering their ability to like process just a lot, just process a lot of data of all sorts of people until you know a lot about them and sell that profile to various people. Like that's kind of their whole business model. So they're fighting very, very hard to be able to continue to use these sorts of tracking techniques that are considered illegal in the EU.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we have FSB arresting Russian hackers who were apparently working for Ukrainian cyber forces. This was 2 different hackers, one of which was located, actually both located in Siberia, but one of which was a member of Ukraine's cyber forces, and then the second one providing infrastructure for hacking operations directed by Ukraine. So in the United States, we often complain about how we have the like Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which can be applied like a little bit, loosely if you want, but they just skipped straight to high treason. Like there's no, there's no computer crime like related charge here. They're literally just charging these 2 people with high treason. So that certainly simplifies things for the prosecution anyway. So yeah.
I mean, they say that they're going to get a trial and everything else, but clearly they're not. I mean, they, I think it said they took them to one of the very notorious prisons for like political dissidents. So if they get a trial, it's going to be a kangaroo court.
Yeah, absolutely. So bad day to be a hacker in Russia, which is traditionally pretty hands off with like hacking groups, provided that you're attacking people outside of Russia.
Sure.
All right, so we've got back-to-back library attacks. Like who would have thought? But
why do people hate libraries?
I don't know. But honestly, I feel like for the amount of people that use them and then the amount of like cybersecurity resources, like they kind of like exist on that perfect spectrum of like both important and neglected in key ways when it comes to like hardening themselves as a target. There's just so many services they're trying to offer, so many third-party providers coming together to offer the services you would see in a library. This is kind of what you can expect. So the Toronto Public Library is experiencing outages thanks to a Black Basta ransomware attack. And this is Canada's largest public library system, 1,200,000 registered users, and a budget that surpasses $200 million. So they've got some money for cybersecurity. But the cyber attack is causing technical outages, and they are working on resolving the situation. But they've got public computers, printing services, access to your online account, and the TPL map passes and digital collection services are all down. It appears that these terminals there are also displaying a ransomware attack notice. So this was taken by someone on a TPL workstation at the library. So yeah, this is not good to see. If this pops up on your computer, you are in trouble. So this is an ongoing attack. It is probably a double exploitation attack, but if it is operating purely on like public facing library services, like this might not be that devastating. If it's just library card information, like that's unfortunate, but like you could probably expect to see maybe some level of like password reuse or something from this, but it's kind of unclear what types of data might be exfiltrated here if this is a double exploitation attack. But yes, this is our candidate for confusing graph of the week. Let's see what the life cycle of the Black Basta attack is. Got the phishing email, URL for the zip file. Okay, all right. We got the macros. Then we've got the Quackbot DLL file, and then we've got C2 activity. All right, they've got persistence. Then they deploy the Cobalt Strike, and then the Cobalt Strike goes to lateral movement, and then they deploy the. Okay, that's moderately confusing because there's a lot of intermediary steps, but I pay attention to detail, and I understand this. Although I feel like maybe not everyone would. So this is like almost all ransomware operations. Black Basta uses a Linux encryptor to target VMware ESXi virtual machines running on Linux servers. This was not always the case. It's funny.
No, that's very recent.
Yeah. So it seems like a lot of these operations have begun targeting these VMware virtual machines as they are super common and often running on Linux servers that can be targeted.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've seen a number of them lately, and a couple groups leverage that specifically. But no, I don't know. I wouldn't say all ransomware operations. It's a more popular variety lately, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting to see how the trends are changing. So
Yeah,
we
for
also
sure.
have the British Library has been knocked offline for the weekend by a cyber attack that has affected reading rooms and other sorts of booking things that you can typically do on site are no longer available. They have just general technology outages as a result of a cyber incident, but at least it's not an encryption event yet.
Sure.
An unexpected encryption event, as they say. So it did not say if any personal or financial information belonging to customers or employees was accessed or stolen. So it still seems like this is going through investigation. But yeah, it seems like this has a pretty large footprint as well, with over 11 million learners visiting the library's website annually. So, I mean, is this critical infrastructure? That's kind of arguable.
Yeah.
But it does seem like libraries are becoming more and more of a target.
It's just mean. Like, I don't know. I mean, all of this is just, it's despicable, like the whole criminal enterprise. But there's, I don't know, a special kind of just malice, or just, I don't know, for target a library. Like, I can't think of a reason.
Yeah, and the fact that it's affecting the public Wi-Fi in the area also sucks, because it really means that like a lot of patrons, a lot of people that would be using the library no longer have a way to do their work or do their research or whatever. And I imagine that spills over to all the IoT devices and other like stations that are in the library. Like they need a data connection to work. So taking out like the library's like public Wi-Fi and other systems is definitely mean and going to affect a lot of people trying to use those services.
Yeah.
All right, we got the new CVSS, Common Vulnerabilities and, oh my God, what is it? Scoring System. Common Vulnerability Scoring System has come out 8 years after version 3.0. We now have version 4.0, and this is based on a couple different metrics. So this is, let's see. I really want to find where it discusses what they changed. Oh, I guess that's further out, but it's talking more about how difficult it. Oh, here we go. All right, exploitability, impact on confidentiality, integrity, availability, and required privileges with higher security. I thought that there was another one now that has
I think it's
the amount of remediation.
It's down a little bit. In addition, supplemental, maybe this one.
Oh, is this it?
Wormable recovery. Yeah, like some additional things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is now what they're focused on. Automatable. So is this like wormable? Recovery, like what is that like? Value density, vulnerability response effort, and provider urgency. So I think these last two are my favorites. Vulnerability response effort. So like how hard is this to remediate? If it's just like pushing one patch real quick, then that's maybe not that severe. But if it's like, if this is just a pain and like people aren't going to do it, then I think it should be a more like severe score, because you can anticipate that with a higher vulnerability response effort, you're going to have a lower compliance and you're going to end up with people just not doing it properly. All right, next up, the Mozzie malware botnet just got shut down. So somebody used a kill switch. It appears that this originally the botnet originated in China, and then for whatever reason, very recently, somebody using code that had similarities to the original code that created the botnet shut it down, but maintained persistence. So this is mysterious. So the botnet is no longer active. However, starting with a halt to all operations in India, this spread and now appears to also have caused a termination in activities in China, which is where the botnet originates. So some theories here were maybe that Chinese law enforcement like got in and arrested the people responsible and then used their resources to deploy a kill switch. But what's notable is that the process caused the following: termination of the Mozzie malware process, disabling certain system services, replacement of the Mosey file, execution of device configuration commands, blocking of access to various ports, and establishing a foothold for a new file. So is this a reboot? Is this some sort of like remediation effort that's supposed to help like patch like what was done before? It's really kind of up in the air, and there's not a lot of transparency as to what is going on. But it is a little mysterious, you know?
Yeah, I don't. My thought when I read that first is maybe a rival botnet operator figured out how to do this and kind of used a quick grab to take control of the resources or something. That was what I thought, at least initially, is specifically because it maintained the persistency. I don't think there's honor among thieves in this particular sense. So who knows?
Yeah, I would agree. It's mysterious, and the fact that the valid private key was used to push this kill switch is interesting. It means that whoever sent this had access to the same private key that the original author of this botnet had. So either they got breached or arrested or something happened. But yeah, kind of a mystery here. A mysterious end to a botnet that we've talked about at least once before.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Flipper Zero. We've talked about the Bluetooth spam attack, and I tried it on my phone. And what did I learn? I learned that Google Play Advanced Protection, which is applied to my account because of me being on Nullbyte, will not allow me to install any third-party app that is not on Google Play Store on my primary device. So that's fine. I have burner phones. I'm going to try out maybe on like my old Android phone. But yeah, I learned that I cannot try it because I am locked down too hard. However, if you are willing to take the risk, you can go to the GitHub repository, and is this it? This is it. Oh, no, that's not it. It's in the story. You can go to the GitHub repository here, and you can download the APK and install it for yourself. It will allow you to try out a lot of these cool attacks that we showed off on, I think I did it on ESP32. I was able to pull it off on, and then also a Pi Pico W I was able to pull it off on. But now it has come to the Flipper Zero and also Android devices. So if you're feeling brave, you can pretend to be a whole bunch of random devices and potentially even cause a denial of service attack as people are flooded with advertisements for nearby devices attempting to pair. So probably one of my favorite tools of the week to be released. This just gets more and more popular as people put it out. As people put out more versions of this that are porting it to different devices. So cool to see it come to Android devices. Nice and easy. Dozens of countries are also pledging to stop paying ransomware gangs, as this is a cross-border issue, and a lot of countries are seeing the value in trying to stamp out this crime by removing the incentive. The United States was also apparently targeted in 46% of all ransomware attacks. And I mean, I guess you go where the money is.
Sure.
But yeah, so representatives of these 48 countries from the European Union and Interpol are going to be at the week's Counter Ransomware Initiative Summit, and they're all going to be looking into ways to disrupt the payment systems and other financial institutions that ransomware gangs use, but not all of them have confirmed they're going to sign the anti-ransomware statement. But I don't know if this is like binding, but it is good to see general agreement on a strategy to move this as a profitable crime. All right, this is interesting. Massive cybercrime URL shortening service uncovered. So this was a threat actor called Prolific Puma, which we can see a mid-journey rendering of here. And they were providing just like one short part of the whole cybercrime lifecycle. They were specializing in that one part. So they were buying up tens of thousands of domains and creating link shortening services that would allow people to share malicious links that were not flagged. So often if you're hosting malware, it gets flagged really quickly. And if you try to send someone a link, that link will get flagged. And as people report these links, then it's really easy to end up with the URL getting completely burned and not being able to use that domain for attacks anymore. So these services are necessary for all sorts of people that are trying to perform attacks and need lots of URLs to do so. So they registered up to 75,000
Wow.
unique domain names since April 2022. And I have seen their handiwork. I have seen, like long strings of random numbers, whatever, like registered as domains. And this is something that's becoming like kind of common, honestly, for these like weird intermediary, like suspicious, random but unflagged domains. So obviously it's hard to keep up with this many suspicious domains being registered all the time. There are companies that are trying to do it, but I got my like nugget.lol like short link for our Discord server flagged by like a predictive like company that just looked at the URLs like that's probably going to be malware one day,
right?
And then, to proactively flag it. So this is these sorts of services are causing such a disruption that like valid domains are being flagged as malware just because they're following this pattern of buying up a bunch of random cheap domains, letting them sit idle for a while, and then switching them over to deliver malicious URLs.
Yeah, I believe that was in this article. They talked about letting them sit to let them get a little bit of age, and I think they also did, maybe they did like a DNS queries or some other type of activity against them to make them seem more legitimate. So it's not just brand new and then part of an attack. I believe that was this article that talked about it. So
yeah, and what also sucks is they're taking up a bunch of good domains. They're going through and they're using less common maybe, but still like available domains and registering things like vf8.us and 2ug.us, just really, really short URLs, and being able to have this volume of like random style domains are like it's its own service. So they were able to be pretty low key and avoid advertising on like online services, like be able to run this kind of in the background. But yeah, pretty crazy the scope of this specialized cybercrime service that was being offered that seems like not even that malicious. What, just running like a URL shortening business and asking no questions? But no, this was much more targeted to delivering malware and delivering malicious links. And the whole thing was structured around trying to evade blocklists and getting banned or getting like a particular URL blacklisted.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing too that I found, I know we're running a little bit short on time, is just that I believe like they also made it difficult or used multiple redirects after the initial link to try and hide it a little bit more.
Oh yeah, captchas and challenges.
Yeah,
to make it harder to like automatically analyze.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Canada is banning WeChat and Kaspersky products on government devices. This does not affect people in Canada's ability to use those apps how they please. However, the government has now been convinced that these two apps provide too much potential sensitive information access to Russian and Chinese intelligence services. So Kaspersky is claiming political reasons for this, but they are not the first country to decide that this was not something that should be on government devices. The FCC added the cybersecurity firm to their covered list, imposing restrictions on the use of Kaspersky products in the country. The German government issued an advisory to warn companies against using the software. The Italian government followed suit, and then the US government banned Kaspersky products on the grounds of providing crucial networks from Russian espionage. So a lot of governments have actually decided that these products represent too much of a risk to be on government or sensitive computers.
Yeah, I think I believe it was even a few years ago that the United States blocked them. I don't remember seeing a date in there, but I remember a few years ago, maybe even pre-pandemic, that's when it happened. So it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, they have. All right, coming up, we've got just a couple minutes, but let's see if we can get a couple stories out. So LastPass had that data breach a while ago, and it has now been linked to theft of $4.4 million in cryptocurrency. So how did this happen? Well, attackers were able to get in and gain access to people's password keychains. They were basically able to get access to the encrypted version of all their passwords. And if someone used a weak master key, that made it possible for hackers to dig around and decrypt these wallets, decrypt these like keychains and find logins and other sorts of information for things like crypto wallets. So by rooting around in this breach data, breaking weak passwords and then using the information inside to log into cryptocurrency exchanges or otherwise get access to a wallet. Attackers were able to steal a lot of money, $4.4 million. I mean, it's not real money, but it turns into real money at some point, which is crazy to me. So yeah, just seeing the fallout from this 1Password attack where it ended up directly LastPass, not 1Password, LastPass attack, where it really did lead to a substantial amount of like lost customer value. That's big, because theoretically this shouldn't be possible. Like if you use the service the way that they tell you to use the service, that can have like a super strong master password, then this shouldn't be possible. But because it's inevitable that not every user is going to be able to follow that or remember that password or whatever, using weak passwords allow for this kind of attack, which I think will be my winner for confusing graph. Let's see.
Yeah, that's
going on.
Yeah, that's something else.
Sure. All right, we've got victims. We've got this is my most confusing graph of the week, everyone. But this, just trust me that this is showing a Ethereum attack. And yes, that appears to be the fallout from that attack targeting LastPass. All right. We also have a remote command injection exploit for the Waze cam that was publicly released. So the last patch that came out will fix this. However, a security researcher has released an exploit, and that means that pretty much anybody can take a whack at this. And it will give, it chains the two flaws that were released together to give attackers an interactive Linux root shell. Turning vulnerable Waze v3 cameras into persistent backdoors and allowing attackers to pivot to other devices in the network.
Sounds not great.
Yep. So the patch also came out right before the competition registration deadline for the recent Pawn to Own Toronto event, and caused some pain for the researcher who was trying to show off these vulnerabilities they've been working on, just before the conference. But yeah, the researcher said that timing was a coincidence and that they were merely trying to safeguard the customers against a threat they'd learned about a few days earlier. And yeah, pretty severe though. The fact that you can get access to someone's like Wi-Fi network via this camera definitely means someone want a patch. And fortunately, a patch is available. Okay, I think that we are just about done for the week. I see we have a question. Should I learn ASM or rely on decompilation for C or C++? So I don't write in C++ as a day job. I write in Python as a day job when I do have to write code. And this is also a news show. So if you want to show up at our Q&A session that is going to be on Wednesday, I will attempt to answer that question, although I probably won't do it very well because, as I said, my job is not to write C++ unless it's Arduino. So I have been doing a lot more like embedded stuff recently, working with like microcontrollers. And I like the Python side of that, which is now a lot of fun. So my tunnel screamer that I showed off earlier, CircuitPython all the way down. Beautiful. But anyways, thank you to everybody who's on the stream today. There was a lot of great comments, and it's always good to see James and everyone else shouting things out, asking good questions, making good comments. So we will see you again on Wednesday, and I'm going to try to grab some people over at the Hackaday SuperCon, maybe do a stream with Make It Hacken or something. But yeah, looking forward to that. I'll have more of that posted. And of course, per always, going to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Varonis, who makes sure we can do this every week. If you want to support the stream and let them know that you love the show, go ahead and go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. And they will see that you love the show. And you can check out some of the more great free content that Varonis has to offer aside from the show. Personal favorites, let's see. Check out the Varonis YouTube channel. They're actually doing some cool stuff on that now, including some really great speed data interviews with our own Megan. So, all right, that's it for this week. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you next time on Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.